Hi, welcome back. This is week 24. My name is Hiroki Kudo. I'm a serial entrepreneur. For this week, I'll be talking about how much progress we had with our startup. Secondly, what our confidence level is. Third, why we do so many interviews. And fourth, to answer a question we got at a comment section, what is a startup? So let's go on with the video. Hi, welcome back. My name is Hiroki Kudo. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm working on my third startup together with Ted, Jay, and April. Altogether, we have 4 people in the member. Really excited. Right now, we've come up with a few ideas that you've seen from the previous weeks, and we're doing research, interviews to check if this is going to be an actual big business. If you're new to this channel, uploads videos of the progress of our startup to document what the daily life of a startup is, and also with an ambitious goal of whether we can reproduce a unicorn startup. So for those who are interested in startups or thinking of starting your own startup yourselves, please subscribe so you can see your journey going forward, and also so that you don't miss any videos. Also, it would be great if you could share and like this video. That will really help us to reach out to those entrepreneurs, startups, and wannabe startups so that they can learn from our progress and maybe our mistakes. We are working on mainly 2 ideas, the escrow idea and the construction software idea. For the construction software idea, I did some research around what is the construction industry, how big it is, and also how projects are formed. So construction industry, depending on the size of the project. And so I broke it down into 3 segments. The first segment is the big segments, the mega projects. Those are projects such as building a new airport, or building an Olympic stadium, or creating a new transportation system. Those project budgets would be 1 to 10 billion, like in the $1 billion range. We will have a very large general contractor that would subcontract a lot of construction companies and other general contract companies, depending on what kind of specialty is needed for that project. So for this type of project, you would have 10, 20 contractors beneath you. Second category would be large projects. Budget-wise, that would be 100 million to 1 billion range. So we're talking about big office buildings, building up big malls, large condos, etc. Again, you will have one general contractor and then multiple construction companies that work under them. The number of contractors working under the general contractor would be 3, 4, 5 range. And then lastly, third layer would be smaller projects. Let's say you're building a house or a townhouse or a small apartment. For those contracts, you would have one construction company, and then you'll have a lot of freelancers. The budget range would be from 500,000 to 100 million. In Japan, there are like 5 really big general contractors. It seems in North America there's much more, something around 10 or so, with Bechtel being the largest general contractor in North America. They have a revenue of 17.6 billion US dollars. And that accounts roughly to 1% of the industry. So you can understand that there's so many small players. So there's these big players, like 10 of them, and then there's so many other construction companies that do smaller projects, or they have a specialty on doing something within the project. Now, all this research I did over the web, so I kind of know what the industry structure looks like, how big it is, how it has changed throughout the years statistically. But I can't really understand what it is, let's say if you are a manager in a construction company, how your day-to-day life is. How has that changed? Has software been introduced, and has that dramatically changed your day? What part of your job do you really like, in what part of the job do you really hate? That kind of information is not on the web, which is one of the reasons why I need to do interviews, which I'll talk about after we talk about the confidence. I've talked to one ex-civil engineer of understanding what his daily life was when he was working in a construction company. He would help the company draft RFPs, requests for proposals, that will be sent to smaller construction companies. He was working with Vancouver International Airport. He also told me after the project kicked off, he would go to the site twice a week or so to do inspections to see what had been agreed in the contract was actually fulfilled. So he would go there, check the process, check if the material or the components were properly installed. He would write reports and he would take pictures. Back then, I think this is like 6-7 years ago, those reports were done in paper. He showed me a format that he would fulfill to report about his inspections. And then he will scan that and send it out to the stakeholders who need to be updated on the progress, on the inspections. He also told that Jobber, one of the softwares that we've seen a lot, have become quite famous in the construction industry. So for his view of the industry, one of the pain points was drafting the RFP and the communication with the stakeholders, because it was very, again, report, paper, pen and pencil, analog method was still there as standard practice in the industry. For the escrow service, I've started asking companies, like B2B transactions, if there's anybody who's in pain, who has suffered from a transaction that, let's say, the opponent ran away without paying or had a very uncomfortable situation where they delivered service or products, but they weren't really sure if they were going to get paid. So that's the progress with this week. Confidence level wise, I would say like 30-40% or so, we're confident. I think we're on to something as per last week, and doing interviews gives us more insight of what specifically are we going to be targeting, and I think we're starting to dial in and to some of the interesting pain points that we can see in construction and also in business transactions. Okay, now I'm going to talk about why we do so many interviews. I'm going to show you how many interviews we've had so far. I blurred out the personal information part, but you can see that we have done a lot of interviews. And also, I'll show you a memo of an interview, because let's say I do an interview, I want to share the contents as much as possible to April, Ted, and Jay, because reading that or understanding that, they might come up with new points that we should explore, such as maybe we should ask these questions to get more insight around these topics. So why do we do so many interviews? As I explained, you can go by reports, you can do a lot of research over the web, but that will give you just a fraction of the understanding of the industry. It'll give you a macro view of the industry, but it won't give you the day-to-day personal pain or insight to the industry. We call the statistic data, reports and all that, we call that second-handed data. Somebody, a research company, or maybe an author has collected all that information and put that into a website, a report, or a book. That itself is very important because it will save us a lot of time to gather all that data, but it doesn't give you the micro level of what is going on. To be able to understand that and to catch up with the current situation, you need to do the data gathering yourself. That is called first-handed data. There's a lot of ways to collect this first-handed data. One way to do that is to do surveys. You get more big picture of the current state of what's going on. You can ask specific questions to a large audience, but it will be very difficult to get a response in a survey saying, hey, my day-to-day is like this, and this part of it really sucks, and they give you detail. surveys, they just answer yes or no, 20%, 30%. I choose A as the answer, and not much comments because people are busy. So to be able to dig in and to really understand what it is to live in that person's shoes, interviews is the best way to go about it. The other really important reason why we do interviews is to kill our assumptions. Let's say we have an assumption that there's a pain point in communicating with other construction companies. If we believe in that and start making communication software for construction companies specific, and we find out later on that isn't really a big pain, we're wasting maybe a whole year and a lot of money. So interviews can help us understand that we are wrong. Going back to Lean Startup, which is another famous book if you want to be a startup founder that you should definitely read, is that you want to make small mistakes, small failures as fast as possible. You don't want to spend years and thousands of dollars on something that is not useful, is not wanted at all. So the faster you can kill those assumptions or ideas, it's better. So for that reason, interviews are very important. But at the same time, interviews are difficult. One is to actually find somebody that is willing to spend their time to talk to you is probably one of the most difficult parts of that. It also takes a lot of courage. I'm a total outsider in the construction business. I don't really know anybody in the industry. So I need to talk to strangers and say, hey, we want to know more about the industry. Will you be willing to spend 30 minutes of your time or so to talk to me so I can understand that? Not many people say yes to that. So you need to contact a lot of people to try to get one interview. That's very time consuming and it takes a lot of energy. And every time you're calling on somebody, you're losing confidence. You're in a very uncomfortable state. So trying to secure interviews is really tough. The second part, once you have the luck of actually talking to somebody, how you conduct the interview is really difficult. There's a wonderful book called The Mom's Test. It tells you what you shouldn't do in interviews. Basically, if you do an interview, there's so much bias in the information you collect. Let's give you an example. When you start your interview, you say, hey, I'm a founder of company X. We're trying to solve the problem in construction industry. We're thinking about creating a software. Now, how does this software look like? Right off the bat, the person who is interviewed, because he knows that you're the founder, so he doesn't want to say something negative. He'll probably say, oh, that's interesting, that's good, it'd be nice to see progress, and like give some feedback, but won't go to the core of saying, hey, dude, like you got this completely wrong. No way I'll use that. It will be very difficult for the person to say that. So how you frame interviews, how you ask questions, how you follow up on that is really important to get the actual facts that you need to collect in the interview. So there's a lot of bias, like saying I'm the founder or asking questions around your actual product will give you right away biased response. And especially in the early days of doing interviews, because you don't know much about the industry, you need to ask a lot of questions around more of the general understanding of what it is daily life of, let's say, construction industry. How often do you go to the construction site? How big is your company? Has there been any changes within the 5 years range that you've witnessed? Like asking those kind of questions, you start to understand, okay, now I'm kind of getting what the experience is. You're trying to relive the experience that the person has had. Then you start to understand the things that have changed. You start asking questions around that. So it seems that this software that you mentioned has become quite popular in the industry. How was your first impression about that? You start talking about and understanding about the pain points that they have. But again, when you ask that, you don't want to frame it in the wrong way, saying, were you hesitant of using that software? You're suggesting that you would be hesitant of using something new. Doing interviews is sort of an art. It takes a lot of practice. Even if you do it like 1,000 times, you still need to understand that you still have some biases. You still have some noise on the information you collect. So you need to be aware of that. So that's the reason why interviews are very important and why interviews are very difficult. And you need to practice your interviews to be good at it. For those who have any questions about our startup or about startups in general or anything that you want to ask, please write it in the comment section below. Also, again, if you can subscribe, we will be updating weekly videos. So if you want to keep up with our journey and be notified when the next video drops, please subscribe. And also give a like to our video. Last video, the response was really good. Right now we've got 12 likes. Thank you for everybody who pushed the like button. Also, we've exceeded 200 views for only a week, so that's really exciting. Subscriber-wise, we have 248 subscribers now, getting close to 250. That's really exciting. I think a month ago, I only had 150 subscribers, so the numbers of subscribers is growing really fast. And I really, really appreciate the support and all the love that I'm getting from everybody. So thank you for watching this video to the very end, and I will see you next week. Bye.